The market on Zaira Prime was not made for humans. The air was thick with strange smells, some sweet, some sharp, some that burned the back of the throat. Neon lights flickered above, and alien voices shouted in a dozen different languages. Jack moved through the crowd, his boots crunching on sand and metal scraps. He wasn't here for trouble. He only needed supplies for his ship, but trouble had a way of finding him. He stopped near a row of cages. Inside them were creatures for sale, some animals, some not. That was when he saw her. She was small, no taller than his chest. Her skin glowed faintly like moonlight. Her hair was silver, falling in loose waves, and her eyes were bright gold. But the way she clung to the bars told him she was terrified. She looked straight at him, her lips parted, and in a soft, trembling voice, she said, "Please, take me away." Jack blinked, unsure if he'd heard right. He glanced around. No one else seemed to care. A thick-skinned alien merchant leaned against the cage, chewing something that oozed green juice. "Pretty, isn't she?" the merchant said with a grin. "Caught her in the border systems. She's rare, and I'm selling cheap." Jack frowned. "Why is she in a cage?" he asked. The merchant laughed, a low rumbling sound. "Because she's weak and useless. Too small to work, too stubborn to obey. But she's pretty enough for other uses." Jack's stomach turned at the tone in his voice. The girl's hands gripped the bars tighter. Her gold eyes locked on Jack like he was her last chance. "I'll do anything," she whispered. Her voice cracked. "If you set me free. I'll give you one night, anything you want." Jack froze. He wasn't sure what shocked him more, the offer or how quickly she made it. She didn't even hesitate. She said it like it was the only thing she had to trade. He saw the faint bruises on her wrists and the way her shoulders trembled. She thought her body was her only value. Jack stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm not here for that," he said. Her eyes widened slightly, like she didn't understand why he would say no. The merchant chuckled. "Don't fool yourself, human. This is a bargain. Take her and be happy." Jack straightened. "What's your price?" he asked. The merchant's grin grew wider. "Not credits. I want a favor. Something only a human like you can do." Jack's instincts told him to walk away. The market was dangerous enough without owing favors to alien traders. But when he looked at the girl again, her lips trembled. He knew she wouldn't last another week in that cage. "What's the favor?" Jack asked slowly. The merchant leaned in, his breath hot and sour. "There's a job on the lower docks, something risky. Take it, and the girl is yours." Jack didn't like it, but he nodded. The merchant's thick hand gripped his in. A rough shake. "Done," the alien said. Jack felt the weight of the deal settle over him. The girl's eyes softened, a tiny spark of hope appearing. "I'll come back for you tonight," Jack whispered to her. She nodded slowly, though she didn't seem to believe it yet. As Jack turned to leave, he felt eyes on him from somewhere in the crowd. The hairs on the back of his neck stood up. He scanned the market, but whoever it was had already disappeared into the flow of bodies. The girl's soft voice followed him as he walked away. "Don't forget me." Jack didn't know it yet, but freeing her would be the smallest part of the danger to come. The night air on Zaira Prime was colder than Jack expected. Mist rolled in from the docks, carrying the smell of oil, salt, and something sharp he couldn't name. The market had gone quiet. Its bright lights dimmed. Only a few shadowy figures moved between stalls. Jack kept his head low as he returned to the cage. Lyra, that was the name she had whispered earlier, sat in the same position. Knees pulled close to her chest. She looked up the moment she heard his footsteps. "Did you come back for me?" she asked softly, her voice holding both hope and doubt. Jack crouched near the bars. "I told you I would," he said. Her eyes flickered with relief, but it was thin, like she still couldn't believe him. The merchant was waiting, leaning against a post. You ready for your part of the bargain, human? He asked with a smirk. Jack's jaw tightened. Tell me what I need to do. The merchant glanced around before lowering his voice. There's a crate on the lower docks. You take it, no questions, no opening it, and you deliver it to a contact in the red sector. Once you do that, she's yours. Jack's gut twisted. He didn't like mysterious jobs. They always ended bad. What's in the crate? He asked. The merchant's grin widened. You don't need to know. Move it before the patrols find it. Lyra's hands gripped the bars. Her knuckles pale. Don't, she whispered urgently. Anything from the red sector is cursed. People who go there don't come back. Jack glanced at her, then back at the merchant. You didn't say anything about it being dangerous, he muttered. The merchant shrugged. You want the girl or not? Jack's mind raced. He had two choices, walk away and leave her, or take the job and risk his neck. He looked at Lyra again, saw the silent plea in her eyes. She had already offered him the only thing she thought she had, and he had refused. This wasn't about what she could give him. It was about getting her out of that cage. I'll do it, Jack said finally. The merchant's smirk grew good. Be at Dock 12 in 20 minutes. Don't be late. Jack turned back. To Lyra, I'll be back before sunrise, he promised. She shook her head, her voice breaking. No one comes back from the red sector. Please don't go. Jack gave her a small smile. I've been to worse places, he said, though it was a lie, as he walked toward the docks. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was following him again. Footsteps echoed faintly. In the mist, always just far enough away. When he turned, the street looked empty, but the shadows felt heavier. He pulled his jacket tighter and kept moving. Dock 12 was almost deserted. A single rusted cargo loader sat near the water's edge. Beside it was a large black crate. No markings, no locks, just a smooth metal surface. Jack approached cautiously. It was heavier than it looked, but manageable. He loaded it onto the back of a small transport skiff and started the engine. The route to the red sector was dark and narrow. Buildings leaned over the streets like they were trying to block the sky. Alien graffiti glowed faintly on the walls. Every few minutes, Jack swore he saw shapes moving in the alleys. But when he looked directly, they were gone, halfway through the sector. A shadow dropped from the rooftops, landing in front of the skiff. It was tall, armored, and its glowing red eyes locked on him immediately. You carry something that belongs to us, the figure said in a deep, metallic voice. Jack's grip tightened on the controls, not interested in a fight. He replied. The figure tilted its head. Then give it to me, and maybe you live. Before Jack could answer, the figure moved fast, too fast for something that size. He swerved the skiff, nearly crashing into a wall. The crate slid dangerously close to the edge. Jack grabbed it, holding it in place. The figure leaped again, landing on the skiff's front. Metal claws digging into the hull. Jack had no choice. He floored the engine, ramming the skiff into the side of a building. The impact threw the figure off, smashing it into the wall. Jack didn't wait to see if it was still alive. He sped forward, heart pounding. When he finally reached the red sector drop point, a hooded alien stepped out from the shadows. You have the package. The voice was smooth but cold. Jack set the crate down without a word. The alien inspected it, nodded once, and slipped away into the darkness. As Jack headed back toward the market, the air felt heavier. He had the uneasy feeling that this wasn't over, and when he thought of Lyra's warning, her frightened eyes came back to him. He hoped he'd still find her waiting when he returned. The first light of Zyura Prime's twin moons spilled over the rooftops as Jack approached the market again. The streets were quieter now, but a strange tension hung in the air. It felt like the whole place was holding its breath. Jack moved. quickly weaving through the narrow alleys until the cages came into view. Lyra was still there, her knees pulled to her chest, eyes fixed on the ground, when she looked up and saw him. The faintest smile touched her lips. "You came back," she whispered. Jack knelt beside the bars. "Time to get you out of here," he said. The merchant was nowhere in sight. That was both good and bad. Good because Jack didn't need to deal with him. Bad because people like that didn't just disappear. They planned things. Jack pulled out the small toolkit from his jacket. With quick, quiet movements, he began working on the cage lock. Lyra's golden eyes darted around the market. "You shouldn't have gone to the red sector," she murmured. "They'll follow you now." Jack's hands didn't stop moving. "They already tried," he said. A sharp click echoed in the air, and the cage door swung open. Lyra hesitated for a heartbeat, as if she didn't believe she could step out. Then she moved quickly, slipping through the opening. Her bare feet barely made a sound on the cold ground. "Stay close," Jack told her. They started toward the outer streets, but Lyra suddenly froze, her head tilted slightly, her eyes narrowing. "They're here," she whispered. Jack didn't have to ask who. He could hear it now, heavy footsteps behind them, slow and deliberate. He turned his head just enough to catch a glimpse. Two large figures in black armor moved through the market, scanning every face, and they were getting closer. Jack grabbed Lyra's hand. "Run," he said. They weaved through the maze of stalls, slipping between startled vendors and piles of alien fruit. Behind them, the armored figures picked up their pace. One of them shouted something in a language Jack didn't know. Lyra's grip tightened painfully. "They won't stop," she panted. "They're blood trackers. Once they smell you, they follow forever." They reached a side alley, narrow and dark. Jack pulled her into it, pressing his back against the wall as the footsteps pounded past the entrance. For a moment, it seemed they had lost them. But then a new sound filled the air, a low guttural growl. Lyra's eyes widened. "They brought a beast," she breathed. A shadow moved at the far end of the alley. The beast stepped into view, a massive creature with 6 legs, each ending in hooked claws. Its mouth split into 3 parts, lined with needle-like teeth. The air around it shimmered with heat. Jack didn't waste time thinking this way, he said, pulling Lyra toward a set of crumbling stairs that led upward. They climbed quickly, the old steps creaking under their weight. The beast lunged below them, claws tearing into the wall from the rooftop. Jack could see the glow of the city stretching out like a sea of light, but they couldn't stay in the open. The hunters would find them in minutes. He spotted a series of connecting rooftops and began moving across them. Lyra followed, light and quick despite her small size. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere they can't follow," Jack replied, though he wasn't entirely sure such a place existed. Halfway across, a sharp sound cut through the night, the whine of a plasma rifle charging. Jack shoved Lyra down just as a beam of blue light seared the air where she had been standing. The hunters were on the rooftops now, closing in from both sides. Jack scanned for an escape and spotted a large skylight below. He smashed it with his boot, then pulled Lyra through, landing in a dusty old warehouse. The space was filled with broken machinery and crates covered in thick cobwebs. Jack helped Lyra to her feet. "They won't stop," she said again, her voice trembling. "They were sent by the one who owned me. He doesn't forgive theft." Jack stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Then we have to make him think you're gone for good," before Lyra could answer. The roof above them groaned under heavy footsteps. Dust rained down. Jack's eyes met hers, and he saw it, a spark of something fierce behind the fear. She reached into the folds of her tattered dress and pulled out a small, glowing shard. "What's that?" Jack asked. Lyra's voice was steady now. "My last weapon. And my last chance." The sound of metal tearing filled the warehouse as the hunters began breaking through the roof. Jack tightened his grip on his pistol. Lyra clutched the glowing shard. The hunters dropped into the warehouse, their eyes burning red in the dim light. The beast followed, its claws scraping the floor. Jack stepped in front of Lyra. "You want her?" "You go through me," he said. The lead hunter tilted its head, almost amused. "That can be arranged." It growled, stepping forward. The warehouse echoed with the deep growl of the beast and the slow, heavy steps of the armored hunters. Dust hung in the air like smoke, and the faint blue light from the shard in Lyra's hand cast strange shadows on the walls. Jack kept himself between her and the danger, his pistol steady but his mind racing. 2 hunters and a beast were not odds he liked. The lead hunter's voice was low and calm. "You're far from home, human. You've stumbled into a war you don't understand." Jack's grip tightened. "I don't need to understand. I just know you're not taking her." The second hunter began circling, its armor creaking with each step. The beast followed, its many legs making a sickening clicking sound against the floor. Its 3 jaws opened slowly, releasing a hiss that smelled of rot and blood. Lyra pressed herself closer to Jack's back, her voice barely above a whisper. "If we don't stop them now, they'll chase us forever." The lead hunter raised a long spear-like weapon, its tip glowing with crackling energy. Jack had a split second to react. He fired, the shot hitting the hunter in the shoulder. The creature staggered but didn't fall, its growl deepening into a roar. The other hunter lunged forward, swinging a blade. Jack ducked and rolled aside, the weapon cutting through the air where his head had been. The beast seized the opening, lunging at Lyra. Its claws scraped the floor as it pounced. Jack spun and fired twice. Hitting it in the side, the creature screeched, twisting in pain, but it didn't stop. Lyra held up the glowing shard, and suddenly the air shimmered around her. A pulse of light burst from her hand, slamming into the beast and throwing it back. The hunters hesitated for a moment, their red eyes narrowing. "That's hers," one of them growled. "The heir's relic?" Jack glanced at Lyra. "What's an heir's relic?" She didn't answer. Instead, she raised the shard higher, her small frame trembling from the energy pouring out of it. The shard's glow grew brighter, filling the warehouse with a pale, almost silver light. The hunters shielded their eyes. But Jack didn't look away. For a moment, he saw not a frightened prisoner, but a figure of strange, fierce beauty, hair flowing like liquid silver, eyes burning gold. She spoke in a language Jack didn't understand, her voice steady and commanding. The hunters froze, their weapons trembling in their hands. The beast howled, trying to back away. Jack didn't waste the chance. He fired at the nearest hunter. Hitting a joint in its armor, the creature fell to one knee, snarling. The second hunter moved to strike, but Lyra's shard pulsed again, sending out another wave of force. This time, the hunter was thrown against the far wall, its armor sparking as it hit the ground. But Jack noticed something. Each time Lyra used the shard, her body seemed weaker. Her breathing became shallow. Her hands shook more. "You can't keep using it," he warned. "If you burn yourself out, I have to," she said. Firmly, "This is the only way to make them stop." The lead hunter struggled back to its feet, its glowing spear still in hand. "You think you can kill us, little heir?" It growled. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "I don't need to kill you," she said. "I just need you to run with one final cry." She slammed the shard into the ground. A blinding wave of light tore through the warehouse. The walls shook. Glass shattered, and the beast screamed as it bolted through a hole in the wall. Vanishing into the night, the hunters staggered, their armor smoking. One of them grabbed the other and growled something in its own language before retreating into the shadows. The silence after was heavy, broken only by the sound of Lyra collapsing to her knees. Jack was at her side instantly, catching her before she fell. Her skin was cold, and the glow of the shard had faded. "You didn't have to do that," he said, her lips curved in a faint smile. "If I didn't, you'd be dead, and I'd be back in chains." Jack helped her to her feet. "We can't stay here," he said. "They'll come back with more." Lyra nodded weakly. "I know a place," she murmured, "but it's far and dangerous." Jack smirked slightly. "Dangerous seems to be our thing," he said. She gave him a tired, almost amused look. "You're a strange human," she whispered. "And you're a stubborn alien," he replied, guiding her toward a broken side door as they slipped out into the night, the last echoes of the fight fading behind them. Jack knew this was far from over. Whoever wanted her wasn't going to give up, and now, after what he had seen, he understood something. Lyra wasn't just someone to save, she was someone worth fighting for. The streets beyond the warehouse were empty. Only the faint hum of distant power lines broke the silence. Jack led Lyra through a series of winding back alleys, staying in the shadows. The moons cast a pale light on her face, showing how pale she had become. Her steps were unsteady, but she refused to slow down. They reached an abandoned tower on the edge of the market district. Its metal walls were rusted, and its windows covered in grime. Jack kicked open a side door and helped Lyra inside. The air was stale and smelled faintly of dust, but it was safe. For now, Lyra sank down against the wall, clutching the shard to her chest. Jack crouched in front of her. "You need to tell me what's going on," he said. "Who are those hunters? Why are they after you?" For a long moment, she didn't speak. Her eyes stared past him, lost in some faraway memory. Then she said quietly, "I am the last daughter of the House of Vera." Jack frowned. "Never heard of it. You wouldn't?" "Have," she replied. "My people. We don't speak of it anymore." She looked down at the shard in her hands. "This relic was my mother's. It holds the authority of our bloodline. With it, the one who carries it can claim leadership." "Of my people?" Jack sat back slightly. "So you're saying you're royalty?" Lyra gave a bitter laugh. "I was, once, before the war." Her voice grew softer. "My family was betrayed. Our city burned, our people scattered. The hunters worked for the man who destroyed my house. He calls himself Regent Kor. If he kills me, his claim becomes law." Jack's jaw tightened, and he kept you in a cage in a market. She nodded. "He wanted to break me before he killed me, make me believe I was worthless so no one would follow me." Jack's mind went back to the moment she had offered herself for one night in exchange for freedom. It made sense now. She had been taught that her body was her last bargaining tool. The thought made his stomach twist. "You're not worthless," he said firmly. Her golden eyes lifted to his, searching his face. "Why do you say that?" "Because you're still here," he said, "and you fought back when you could have run. That means something." For a moment, she just stared at him, as if no one had ever said those words to her before. Then she looked away, her voice quiet. "You don't understand. If Kor knows, I still have the relic. He'll send more than hunters. He'll send an army." Jack leaned back against the wall. "Then we stay ahead of him, find somewhere he can't reach you." Lyra shook her head. "There's no such place. Not while he controls the ports and the trade routes." She hesitated, then added, "There is one chance, but it's dangerous." Jack gave her a tired smile. "Dangerous is becoming our thing." She didn't smile back. "It's on the outer rim. A hidden fortress my family built before the war, if I can reach it. I can call the old guard, the ones still loyal to my bloodline. They could protect me. Maybe even fight back." Jack thought about it. Getting to the outer rim would mean crossing half the sector, with hunters, beasts, and who knows what else chasing them. But when he looked at her, exhausted, bruised, yet still holding on to That shard like it was her soul. He knew he couldn't just walk away. "All right," he said. "We'll get you there." Her eyes widened slightly. "We?" "Yeah," he replied. "You're not doing this alone, for a moment." Something like relief flickered across her face, but it didn't last. A low hum filled the air. Vibrating through the walls, Lyra's expression turned to dread. "They've found us," she whispered. Jack moved to the window, peeking out. Dark shapes moved through the streets, not just hunters this time, but a group of armored soldiers, and in the center, towering above them all, was a massive figure draped in black. Even from a distance, Jack could feel the weight of its presence. "Let me guess," he said quietly. "Core." Lyra's voice was barely audible. His enforcer. Jack turned back to her. "Can you walk?" She nodded, forcing herself to her feet. Her legs shook, but she stayed upright. Jack grabbed her hand. "Then we move." Now, they slipped out the back door, keeping low as they ran between buildings. The sound of boots and the metallic clank of weapons grew closer. Lyra's breath came fast, but she didn't complain. They were almost to the edge of the district when a deep voice rolled through the air. "Run if you want. It makes no difference." The sound froze Jack in place for half a heartbeat. When he looked over his shoulder, the massive enforcer was there. Its eyes glowed faintly, and in one hand it carried a weapon the size of Jack's torso. It took a step forward, the ground vibrating under its weight. Lyra's grip on his hand tightened. "If he catches us, it's over," she said. Jack met her gaze. "Then he won't catch us." They turned the corner and vanished into the shadows, but the enforcer's slow, steady footsteps followed, always the same distance behind, like it already knew they couldn't escape forever. The narrow back streets of Zyra Prime twisted like a maze. Jack led Lyra through them, relying on instinct more than memory. Every step was a gamble. Turn the wrong way, and they could run straight into Core's soldiers. The enforcer's heavy footsteps still echoed in the distance. A slow and steady reminder that he was not far behind after what felt like hours of running. They emerged into a quieter part of the city. The lights here were dim, the buildings older and leaning against one another like tired giants. Jack knew someone who lived nearby, an old smuggler named Herrick's. If anyone could hide them for a while, it would be him. They slipped through a narrow alley until they reached a reinforced metal door. Jack knocked in a pattern only Horrocks would know. The door opened with a hiss, revealing a tall, wiry man with skin like cracked leather and eyes that never seemed to stop moving. "Jack," Herrick said, his voice low. "You've brought trouble." Jack glanced back at Lyra before answering. "Need a place to lay low, just for a night." Herrick studied Lyra for a moment, his gaze lingering on the shard in her hand. "Inside," he said finally, stepping aside. The safe house was small but secure. Steel walls, no windows, and a hidden back exit. Lyra sat down on a low bench, keeping the shard close. Horrocks poured 3 cups of something that smelled faintly sweet and bitter. Jack didn't touch his. "You've heard of Regent Core?" he asked. Herrick's smile was thin. "Everyone has." Jack leaned forward. "He's after her, obviously," Herrick said, glancing at Lyra again. "And you've decided to put yourself between him and his prize. You've always had a bad sense of self-preservation." Lyra's voice was quiet, but steady. "I'm not his prize. I'm his enemy." Herrick's raised an eyebrow. "And you're still alive? That's impressive." For the next hour, they spoke little. Jack checked his gear while Lyra dozed lightly. Outside, the city seemed calm, but Jack knew it wouldn't last. Eventually, Horrocks broke the silence. "There's a way out of the city, a transport leaving. At dawn, it's headed toward the outer rim." Jack looked at him sharply. "You're sure?" "Sure enough," Horrocks said, "but you'll need to move fast. Core's net is closing. By morning, there won't be a safe street left." It sounded too easy. But Jack didn't have many choices. "We'll take it," he said. Herrick nodded. "Slowly, I'll get the details. Stay here and don't open the door." The smuggler slipped out into the night, leaving them alone. Lyra opened her eyes and looked at Jack. "You trust him?" she asked. Jack hesitated. "I trust him enough." But as the hours passed, unease began to grow in his chest. Herrick's was taking too long when he finally returned. His smile seemed a little too wide. "Good news," he said. "The transport is ready. A friend of mine will take you straight to the outer rim." Jack didn't like the way Herrick avoided his eyes. Still, he and Lyra followed him through the back exit. The streets were empty, and the mist was thicker now. They reached a small landing pad where a sleek black skiff waited. Its engines hummed softly. "This is it," Herrick said. "Get in, and you'll be out before sunrise." Jack helped Lyra climb aboard, then stepped in himself. The pilot, a bulky alien with deep-set eyes, didn't speak. The doors closed with a heavy clang, and the skiff lifted off. For a few minutes, everything seemed fine. The city lights began to fade below them. Lyra leaned against Jack, her eyes half closed, but then the pilot spoke for the first time. "You two have something that belongs to Regent Corps, Jax." Blood went cold. His hand went for his pistol. But two armored figures stepped out from the shadows of the skiff's rear compartment. Hunter's Lyra sat up, clutching the shard tightly. Herrick's voice came through a small screen on the wall. "Sorry, Jack. Business is business." "You've sold us out," Jack growled. Herrick's smile was almost apologetic. "Corps. Paying more than you ever could. Nothing personal." The hunters moved forward, weapons ready. Jack stepped in front of Lyra. The pilot tilted the skiff sharply, forcing Jack to grab the wall to keep from falling. One of the hunters lunged, but Jack fired, hitting its shoulder. The other swung a heavy blade, slicing through the bench where Lyra had been sitting. The skiff's engines roared as it changed course, heading straight for the center of the city. Jack realized with a sick feeling they were being delivered right. To Corps himself, Lyra's eyes were wide but defiant. "We can't let them take us alive," she said. Jack gave her a grim nod. "Then we don't." He fired again, forcing the hunters back. The shard in Lyra's hands began to glow faintly. The hunters hesitated. They had seen what it could do, but before Lyra could use it. The skiff jolted violently. Something outside had hit them. Alarms blared, and the pilot shouted in panic. The skiff began to spin, city lights flashing past the windows. Jack grabbed Lyra, holding her close. Whatever happened next, they'd either be free or dead. The skiff spun through the misty night. Metal groaned as it twisted in the air. The pilot fought for control, but the engines coughed and sputtered below. The glowing streets of Zaire Prime blurred into a river of light. Jack kept his arms around Lyra, shielding her from the worst of the jolts. The hunters inside scrambled to keep their balance. One slammed into the wall, its weapons skittering across the floor. Jack kicked it out of reach, firing a quick shot that made the other hesitate. The shard in Lyra's hands pulsed with light. She looked up at Jack, her face pale but her eyes fierce. "If we crash, they'll still take us alive," she whispered. Jack shook his head. "Not if I have anything to say about it," with a final shudder. The skiff slammed into the roof of a tall building. The impact tore through the hull, sparks flying in all directions. Metal screeched as they slid across the roof before coming to a sharp stop. Smoke filled the cabin, stinging Jack's eyes. The first hunter rose, limping, but still dangerous. Jack lunged forward, tackling it into the side of the skiff. The second came at him from behind, but Lyra thrust the shard out. A wave of silver light erupted, knocking the hunter back through the open hatch. It vanished into the night, falling toward the streets far below. Jack turned back to Lyra. "We have to move," he said. The roof around them groaned. The crash had weakened it. They climbed out onto the edge. the city stretching endlessly. Beneath their feet, a deep voice cut through the smoke. "You've run far enough." Jack froze from the far side of the roof. The massive enforcer stepped into view. Its armor was black as the void, its eyes glowing faintly red behind it. Herrick stood with two more soldiers, his expression unreadable. Jack's hand went to his pistol. "You're still breathing?" he said coldly to Herrick's. "Not for long," Herrick smirked. "I told you, Jack. Nothing personal." The enforcer took a step forward, the roof trembling under its weight. Lyra stood beside Jack, her shard glowing. Brighter with each passing second, the enforcer's voice was deep and calm. "Give her to me, human, and I'll let you walk away." Jack didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on the enforcer. Lyra's hand touched his arm. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "You've done enough. I can't ask you to die for me." Jack turned to her, his voice steady. "You didn't ask," he said. "I chose," the enforcer charged. Moving faster than something that size should, Jack fired, his shot sparking against its armor. It didn't slow. At the last moment, Jack dove aside. Dragging Lyra with him, the enforcer's strike split the roof where they had been standing. Herrick shouted for his soldiers to close in. Jack grabbed a loose metal pipe and swung it in two. The first soldier's helmet, the second, lunged at Lyra, but she held the shard high. Light flared, blinding them both. Jack took the opening and shoved the soldier over the edge. The enforcer roared. Swinging its massive weapon at Jack, he ducked. Feeling the rush of air as it passed inches from his head, Lyra stepped forward, her voice ringing out in that strange royal language. The shard's light surged, wrapping around her like armor. The enforcer hesitated just for a heartbeat, but it was enough. Jack moved in, driving the pipe into a gap in the armor at its side. The enforcer staggered, growling. Lyra pressed the shard against its chest. The light poured into the armor, and with a deafening crack, the enforcer collapsed to its knees. Herrick stood frozen, his smug confidence gone. Jack stepped toward him. "You sold us out," he said, his voice low. Herrick's took a step back. It was just business." Jack's fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling. "Not anymore," Jack said. The roof groaned again, a warning they couldn't stay. Lyra's strength was fading, but she kept her eyes on Jack. "We can still make it to the outer rim," she said softly. Jack nodded. Pulling her close, "We will." They reached the edge where a small maintenance skiff was docked. Jack helped her aboard and started the engine as they rose into the night sky. The city shrinking below. Lyra leaned against him. "You could have walked away," she murmured. "Why didn't you?" Jack smiled faintly. "Because you're worth more than one night. You're worth a fight." For the first time since he'd met her, Lyra's smile was unguarded. She held the shard tightly, its glow warm against her hands. Somewhere out there, the outer rim fortress waited. And maybe, just maybe, the chance to take back everything she had lost. The skiff vanished into the dark horizon. The chase was over for now, but Jack knew this was only the beginning.